Hello everyone, Health Control is back to bust all the fake news. Before we begin, let's observe a minute's silence for our beloved Dr. KK Agarwal. So, today we would be decoding myths around bird flu. A 41-year-old man in China has been confirmed as the first human case of infection with a rare strain of bird flu, H10N3, reported Beijing's National Health Commission. With novel coronavirus still rampant, the fear of new virus which causes bird flu has spread. Today, to decode H10N3 avian flu, we have with us Dr. Anita Chakravarti. Just a quick introduction. Dr. Anita is ex-director professor microbiology, Maulana Azad Medical College and associated hospitals. Her specialization is in clinical virology. Along with it, she has many publications in peer-reviewed journals. Welcome to the show, ma'am.
Thank you, Anchika. That's a nice introduction.
My first question to you is, the virus was first reported in geese in China in 1996. Since then, outbreaks have been reported periodically across the world. There are different strains of bird flu: H5N1 reported in 1997, H7N9 reported in 2013, H5N6 reported in 2014, and H5N8 that caused concern in the recent past. How is H10N3 different from all these strains?
To know that, we have to see about the virus. Now, this is a virus which is an RNA virus. It is a orthomyxovirus. That's what we call it, because it has inclination of attaching itself to mucin receptors, either in the cell or in the respiratory tract. So this has an RNA, and that is a segmented RNA. It's a very unique type of RNA which you don't see in other viruses. And because of its segmented nature, it is got about the group A has about 8 segments, and H and N, and neuraminidase, these are the source of attachment and detachment. So what happens is that at a time, generally in man, you can see almost all the H types of infection. What we have now is H1N1, which has become totally it is no longer a pandemic virus. Initially it was a pandemic virus, but we don't call it a pandemic virus. And our recent generation of interest has been on the avian viruses, and avian are usually H5 and H5 and they are belong to H5, H7. So that's the type of viruses which are seen, But yeah.
So, ma'am, how is this virus different from the one found in COVID?
COVID virus belongs to coronavirus group. It's a member of the family Coronaviridae, and that is also an RNA virus. Its complete constitution is different. So it belongs to a different family, while influenza virus belongs to a totally different family. Now, both are respiratory viruses. And usually coronavirus would not cause so much of an infection like the present coronavirus, SARS coronavirus is causing now. Only you had the MERS and the SARS causing massive infection in localized people. It didn't cause pandemic. So this is a completely different type of virus. Only commonality is that both of them cause respiratory tract infection. And coronavirus can also affect other places. So this influenza virus clinically usually does not lead to the antibody storming reactions and all, which is seen in coronavirus. While coronavirus will, like the COVID, first of all, there'll be viremia, then the virus will not be there. Then what you see is the antibody storming and the ADCC effect. This is the immunological effect of the body which works on its own cells and causes. But the influenza virus does not cause this type of lesions. Normally, it's mild. You have it every year. You have sore throat, myalgia, fever, low or high grade of fever. Respiratory symptoms could be there, but sometimes there could be complications in elderly or immunocompromised, like pneumonias could be there. There could also be serious pneumonias. So the group totally is different. One is a orthomyxovirus, one is a coronavirus.
Okay. My next question is the H5N1 variant that first infected people in 1997 has been the most deadly, killing 455 people globally so far. In February, Russia reported the first human infection with H5N8 virus that caused huge damage on poultry farms across Europe, Russia, and East Asia. 7 people infected with the virus were asymptomatic, authorities said. India reported the presence of the virus in Maharashtra in 2006, which led to large scale culling of poultry birds. Century's great pandemic of 1951 and 1968, sparked by hybrid flu, which suggests that pandemic can form in more than one way. How dangerous is the current strain for India? Is it a concern for another pandemic?
Avian influenza occurs, and this is basically related to birds. And it need not be only in hens and chicken. It occurs in migratory birds too. In fact, in geese and turkeys, many times they may not manifest the infection, but the other birds like waterfowls and other birds which are seen, they do manifest the infection. And usually it remains localized in birds. It generally doesn't jump the species barrier. The incidence of species barrier jump, which we saw, was in 2009, but that was because you had the human virus and you had the avian virus, and there was a vessel that was the pig, in which the genome of these viruses reassorted. So basically, you had, two avian viruses, one human virus gene, and one swine virus. So this is rare, and such pandemics are usually seen after 10, I would like to call it 20 years, because it's 2009, now it's 2021. So generally it's localized. But yes, the moment you see dead birds or birds with ruffled, feather, and you see a whole group of bird population get together, then the first thing which is done is they are tested. And after testing, then a limitation is, they try to uh, cull the birds. They kill the birds, so the infection is limited. That's the main thing. अजय मैं एक टॉक में हूँ माझ्या कनेक्ट के बाद फोन करूँ लाइव शो में हूँ yeah. So that's the main thing. So one need not be that afraid, because here are people who are looking after them. There are various organizations. They are meant to see this. It's the veterinary department which is very active in this, and they see to it that the moment this happens, they take the carcasses, they test for the virus. We have very good facilities in Bhopal, which is called as the type 4 facilities. I mean, it will not allow a single germ to get out of the facilities. For COVID, we use BSL-2, but here we use the safety lab of the type 4, So there they just analyze, and then they see which the virus is, and whatever area there is, these crows or these animals are dying. And if they find the virus, they seal it and they cull the animal. Cull means they kill the birds in a certain way, and then they make pits and bury, and then they put disinfectants. There is no spread. This is the way they normally do. So now it is not of that much concern. People are aware, the health authorities are aware, and they're looking into it. And hopefully things will be in control.
It seems bird flu is a concern for migratory birds, but we have type 4 facilities, like ma'am mentioned, in Bhopal, and they will make sure that it does not spread to humans or doesn't cause any pandemic. Third question to you, ma'am. What is the difference between low pathogenic avian flu and high pathogenic avian flu. Is it true that low pathogenic influenza viruses such as H5 and H7 have the potential to mutate into high pathogenic avian flu? Is H10N3 the mutated form of any strain of bird flu?
Actually, you get both of them. And in the low pathogenic, the animals are sick. The mortality may not be that high in the birds. In high pathogenic, they are dead. And both can infect man, both can. And there can be a time when the low pathogenic can become the high pathogenic strains, and then it's very infectious. It's the amount of infectivity which is transmitted, and it becomes highly infectious. And if man gets the in a high pathogenicity test, then obviously he's much more serious, and the manifestations and the mortality rate would be much more.
But ma'am, my question is H10N3 the mutated form of any strain of bird flu?
Normally, we don't see the H10 strains in man. So this is seen in the birds, because all the strains are seen in birds. Okay, and mutation is always happening. That is one thing I have to say, because as I told you, it's a segmented genome. So they are in separate parts. They are not together. So you have two types of basic changes. One is called as the antigenic shift. The other is called as the antigenic drift. Drift is point mutation, means at certain parts in the amino acid sequence of the genome there will be changes, and they are minor changes. So they are called, and they will not manifest immediately. They'll manifest after there are more of these point mutations in a year, 2 or 3 years. But the major mutation, which we called as the antigenic shift, here what happens is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 segments are there. So the 2 can go towards the 7 segment. So the genome frame has changed. This leads to a massive change in the structure, and this leads to this could lead to a pandemic. So in the case of H10N3, this is a bird virus, and things have to mutate so that this occurs. Any change in the nomenclature, H is the heme agglutinin, N is the neuraminidase. These are two proteins on the surface of the virus, attachment protein, one of them. So any change in this, that will lead to mutation in this, will lead to a change in the structure.
Ma'am, could you please explain our audience the different kind of strains that exist and different kind of combination possible with H and N, while also explaining to them which all strains can pass to humans and which cannot?
See, the common strains in man, one which we usually saw was the H3N2. And then, of course, you have the H1N1. All these strains can be seen in the birds. And the common strains in the birds are the H5 and H7. These are the most common. But then you have the additional H10 also coming. And you can have different permutations and combinations. And the H you have up till 18. So, and the N you have more limited. So this can come in various combinations, but the main strains are H1N1, H3N2. These are the main strains which circulate. And fortunately, WHO as well as India, we have a many surveillance center, and this is going on since a very long time. So the surveillance is done every year. The reports are given every month. Data goes through the integrated disease surveillance program. So this surveys many diseases, out of which this is one of the diseases. And we have centers like NCDC, Delhi is one center, which is in Shamnath Marg. NIV Pune is in one place. There are centers in the southeast, every region. So they send their data. So we have these influenza labs who are doing a very good job of surveillance. The moment they feel there is some abnormality in the strain, this gets reported to WHO. And then there is an increased surveillance, and they see if this could be dangerous to human beings and how that can be taken care of, how rapidly the vaccine towards that can be produced. Because with influenza, one has to know that the vaccines do change depending on the viruses which are circulating, right? So according to that, you have to change your vaccines, and it could be yearly changed, or it might remain the same because of the basic genomic structure of the virus. Because of this, not like coronavirus. The coronavirus genome is not segmented genome.
Ma'am, though you already mentioned that there is a rare chance for the virus to be transferred to humans, but do viruses from birds jump to humans often? And is it true that bird flu viruses are highly contagious? What is your comment?
They do not jump often, number one. Number two is, yes, bird flu viruses are contagious, but then they will be contagious to those humans who are working with the birds, maybe in the poultry farms or where there are birds, and where there are these sick birds. And, like where they are handling the birds, because it's through the secretion that man gets infection. Secretion, and then out of the secretion, there can be droplets, and the person can inhale. They're larger droplets than coronavirus. Almost, I think they are about 10 millimicrons in size. So they are larger droplets. Therefore, they won't spread that fast. So that's how man can get infection. Even through the feces of the birds, even through the feces, or many times, bird takes out more secretion from the mouth when they are sick, like the animals. So that could be contagious. So importance in everything is, if you ask me, proper hand washing, proper sanitation, proper disinfection, proper cleanliness. And I think we all have learned it in the COVID era. We have learned what is right, otherwise it will be at the cost of us.
If not COVID, we would definitely fight other viruses through our level of sanitation, I'm sure. Next question is what are the various symptoms of bird flu? How does it spread? Can it transfer to air transmission like COVID?
Air to air is rare. Air to air is rare. As I just said, the particle size are big. So through secretions, it is transmitted. And of course, like like we in India, we eat well cooked food. We don't eat undercooked food. Now, this virus can be damaged at a high temperature, almost at 70 degrees plus. So the moment you boil the egg total, or you don't, you cook the chicken or the meat what you're preparing, the virus gets killed. So you can kill this virus, and just as I told you, through the secretions it gets transmitted. It is a transmissible disease.
And ma'am, what
If
are the
it
various symptoms?
Yeah, tell me. Symptoms are in the birds. In the birds, the symptoms are, they won't be active. They will have ruffled feathers if it's mild, or you'll suddenly realize that suddenly when the birds are migrating, you'll see a flock of bird lying dead somewhere. Or in the poultry farm, you'll see many birds lying dead. So that will give you a clue that this could be probably because of bird flu. And that's when you have to be very careful with the carcasses, whoever is there. Now, in man, the symptoms are the same, but pneumonia is much more. So, because of virulent pneumonia, the mortality is very high. So that is when it becomes very dangerous. If the avian influenza strikes man, and the disease spreads in the body very fast. Normal influenza, we just say we have got flu, take rest for 3, 4, 5 days, take some, antipyretics, and you will become all right. But in this case, its manifestations are much more severe. The pneumonia, you can make it out when you take the X-ray of the lungs. There are pathognomic changes of pneumonia, viral pneumonia.
As mentioned by ma'am, pneumonia is one of the major symptoms that one can observe in bird flu. Though we can avoid bird flu by sanitation, are there any other precautions that one can take to prevent bird flu?
No, precaution in the sense that if when it is noticed in particular area, culling has to be done immediately. That is very important. The birds who are infected, they have to be killed because the spread is very fast in the bird and it should not be transmitted further. And now that we know that it's transmitted from migratory bird. In fact, there are certain corridors in India when in the winter season these birds come. And there are places, say Himachal Pradesh or in Rajasthan, the birds migrate in the winters. In Delhi also we have seen them migrating. So that's when they will carry the disease. So one has to be aware that this disease is there and this can happen. And if it happens, you prevent it in the animals. That's it. We hope man-to-man transmission doesn't occur, but if it occurs, then person is isolated, and we all know again it's the PPE person wears who's treating. It starts them with you have antivirals, of course. You have oseltamivir and you have amantadine. There are certain antivirals against influenza. So those are started, and person should
So, ma'am,
respond. If
did
it,
I get it right that man-to-man transmission is not possible in case of bird flu?
no, it doesn't talk.
So our
No,
audience is
usually
comparatively safe as compared to current situation where we
yes.
have been
They-
the draft.
And we won't let them not be afraid by this term bird flu. Actually, our
We
press is very active.
Now, talking about the vaccine, do we have vaccine for human against H10N3? When should a person seek medical advice? And do we have treatment for bird flu? Is it true that avian flu can be cured through vitamin supplements?
No. I mean, vitamin supplements wouldn't be of any use. And what was the other question you told? Do we have
Vaccine for
yes,
human.
you have access towards the human influenza viruses. And as I just said, they are all available. They're called as Fluvac. Sanofi gives a vaccine called as Fluvac. And there are changes made in the vaccine. So when you're buying a vaccine, you have to see that the date on the vaccine is the recent one, because it'll have those strains which are circulating. The older strains would, being vaccinated against the older strains would not be of that much use. It's important that you are vaccinated in the current strain. And WHO sees to it that these are inactivated vaccines, or they are live vaccines which are, put in certain thermosensitive mutants and put in the nose, because nose has a lower temperature, so it won't multiply anywhere else. It will just give you the localized immunity and generation of antibodies there. And the inactivated strain, of course, is inactive, so it won't cause damage. So these are available, and I should think that people who have comorbidities, who are, at the a little older, and who have lung infections, they should get their yearly shots. They should ideally get their yearly shots. It's a bit expensive, Anshika, in India, but I wish it was cheaper, because we don't have it in our national immunization program, so it's expensive. So should be.
But the people who are in working in the farms, they should definitely get
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
vaccine.
That's the point. Yes, they should definitely take it. That will be good if they take it.
Ma'am, you mentioned that one should check the recent date. But what is your reference point for the recent date?
Every year, WHO comes out with the, with sometimes I think in May, April, May, they come out with notifications that this is the circulating strain, and then they also tell you that this against this strain the vaccine is going to get produced. So for a layman, that he may not, be going into all these details. So whatever the vaccine currently available on the vial, it will be written the date of the vaccine which is available. The recent year should be taken into consideration.
Okay. Ma'am, you just mentioned that one should boil chicken nicely and one should boil eggs nicely so that at a higher temperature the viruses can be killed. But is it a belief or is it true that people can contract bird flu by eating poultry and eggs? Is it factually
No,
correct?
if the bird flu, there is a big outbreak of this bird flu in a poultry farm, and if the farmers there are not taking precaution and they are not properly uncooked things they are eating, like many people just have, like what you call even unboiled eggs, some, I mean, half boiled eggs. So that can cause infection. That can definitely cause infection. But the infection has to be there in the birds. If there's no infection, it's healthy, then of
Hmm.
course there's no question. There won't be infection.
Okay. In 2009, the H1N1 swine flu became airborne and caused a mild pandemic. Viruses like H1N1 are mutating all the time. Do you think, like H5N1, H10N3 can acquire some properties of H1N1 and then easily spread in mammals?
Actually, there is a likelihood it can happen. Theoretically, it can happen, but it won't. I mean, it doesn't occur that frequently. These episodes occur after years and after many mutations occur. So theoretically, yes, it could happen. In
Ma'am, could
fact,
you
Anshul,
also?
oh yeah, tell me.
Yes, ma'am, you were saying something.
Yeah, in fact, this year people were so panicky that I remember that they came to know about the bird flu and suddenly everyone stopped eating eggs. So they were discarded, and like I had to tell people that if you boil, kuch nahi hoga. But they don't. I mean, like when you don't know completely about it, people do get very panicky.
But it's better to not eat egg than have bird flu. So if people were unaware and then not eating eggs, fine. But now I think my audience know that they can have eggs because that you have mentioned that opinion is coming from an expert and they will eat chicken and eggs for their health.
Properly
Um,
cooked.
Properly cooked. Ma'am, next question: how is swine flu different from H10N3?
See, it's different in the sense the swine flu name has come because the mix the vessel in which it mixed all these viruses, two avian viruses, two strains, one human virus, it mixed in the pigs, and the genome of the pig was taken. You see, so you had the four genes. So basically, morphologically, genomically, it is a different virus. It's a different virus. The swine flu is different. This is different, but they are all influenza viruses. They belong to orthomyxovirus group.
The bird flu actually dates back to 1980 with the Spanish flu, which was the first major flu pandemic of 20th century that killed an estimated 20 million to 40 million people. Researchers at Armed Forces Institute of Pathology found that virus strain developed in birds and was similar to today's bird flu. After that, Asian flu was a category, two flu pandemic outbreak of influenza that originated in China in early 1956, lasting until 1958. Since 1997, the United States has experienced 17 incidents of H5 and H7 and one incident of HPAI. But still, people say that bird flu is rare. What is your comment?
I agree. Bird flu in birds is common, but bird flu in man is rare. They do not jump that species barrier that frequently. It's like the coronavirus. Suddenly it has occurred, and then we are unprepared, and it's a new virus, and nothing is known about it. But you have other members of coronavirus which can cause upper respiratory infection, it can cause a mild cough, and you just ignore these things, or slight abdominal infections. So it has always been there, but this sudden strain which came, the COVID-19. So this is the one which we were unprepared for. So the same with the avian. Normally, it doesn't jump that barrier to that extent. Fortunately, it restricts. Therefore, when you work on avian flu virus, you work in those biosafety high level of precaution, BSL-4 labs. They're a complete sealed unit. So that's how it goes.
So our audience need not worry at all. It is a very restricted bird flu. It is a very restricted virus, and there are no doubts of being in a pandemic phase. Ma'am, my last question to you, and an interesting one. COVID is global, but questions over Wuhan lab leak won't go away. Do you think that bird flu also originated in China and is lab manufactured?
Well, I don't think so. And then, of course, COVID, there is a lot of investigation, and the seekers want to know what is happening, and they're not aware about it. But bird flu is not a leak. Bird flu was always there in birds. Only thing is, it breaks down the barrier and comes to human beings. So that's the sad part of it, and that, of course, is because of our many times unhygienic behaviors, us not noticing various things like the death of the birds, etc. So it's not to the best of my knowledge a leak of any lab.
Our experts clearly don't believe that bird flu is lab produced. Before we leave, ma'am, I would like to see if we have some questions from the audience. I would request Ritu to please let us know. We do have some. Is any case of H10N3 present in India?
No, not in not H1N3. Yes, H1N3 is not a bird flu.
H10N3 it is mentioned, but you are saying that H1.
H10N3, yes, no. H10N3 is not there in India.
Ma'am, what were you mentioning about H1N3?
H1N3 could be there in the humans, but not H10N3.
Influenza virus transmit like COVID-19. We have already answered this question, Prashant. And do we have some other? Can this virus spread like corona? We have already discussed this in our show. I hope you got the answer that it cannot. And do we have any other question? Can the virus from birds change to something which can communicate from human to human?
From human to
Human. Can there be a
from bird to
possibility in future that we get that bird flu spread from human to human?
very rare. Possibility is there, but very rare. And and hopefully we don't want it to spread, but there is a possibility.
Okay. Do we have any other question? Ma'am, it is written, ma'am, nowadays they inject steroids in chicken to grow. How does it affect us? How can we protect ourselves?
Steroids. They inject steroids.
Yes, ma'am. They inject steroids into chicken to grow. This is a question by Tabasum.
Actually, this is a wrong thing to do. Injecting steroids. Actually, this is a wrong practice. So the farms which are doing it, they shouldn't do it. Frankly, even they should not give antibiotics to the in the poultry farms to the hens, because all this leads to antibiotic resistance. These are the wrong procedures which are being done, and there has to be strict authority which has to manage, see this, as well as there should be a certifying authority. Perhaps there is, I don't know, but perhaps there is a certifying authority which should see to it that steroids and as well as antibiotics are not given. This is a good question, and because of this antibiotics, we are having so much of antibiotic resistance. You see, antibiotics were given to animals. From them, man got antibiotic resistance. Then in countries like India, outside the counter, we are getting all the antibiotics. You don't need a doctor's prescription also. So people go on guzzling all these drugs, and then there is resistance. And then when the actual infection occurs, you can't. So, in developing countries, these strict measures need to be taken. There have to be, surprise visits. Someone has to monitor if the birds are getting. So this is not easy in a country of our size, and the poultry farms who will do it, they will take a lot of money when they sell you the products. When we are not that rich, then we would like to buy the same chicken which is cheaper, So they may not be having such strict way of growing the chickens and hens. One should not give fish to dogs.
That's a debatable topic, I guess, talking about sustainability, capitalism at role, and other
Yeah.
social factors that come into play. Ma'am, what is your final comment for our audience?
My final comment for audience is that as we are seeing many outbreaks and pandemics are occurring by new viruses, we need to be brave. We need not to panic. And we need to know a little bit more about that particular infection so that we don't panic. Now, normally bird flu is a limited infection. The flu which the COVID infection which we are seeing, it's a new novel infection. When a new infection occurs, people don't know about the pathogenesis, how it occurs. So because of that, the spread is much more. We know about bird flu, but COVID we don't know. So at present there is no infection. You can eat your properly cooked chicken, poultry, and the final word is, I hope all of you are taking precaution in masking yourselves. We are very concerned because if you don't mask, this pandemic will never end and we'll lose so many of our dear ones. So, social distancing, masking. I already see on the road so many people going suddenly as if there's a burst of energy, but this is the time when one has to be taking precaution. So, please spread it to everyone and see they follow. And Shika, this is a message which has to be told many times.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I hope my audience is better aware and they are not scared of eating chicken or eggs and they will take better precautions as you suggested against COVID. Thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you. Thank you, Anshika.